Hello and welcome to this very special panel where today we're looking at quality education and why it's the one thing that we believe is going to be the game changer for an entire generation of Indians. An entire generation that's willing to go all the way, willing to go the extra mile to get access to the best education that there is on offer, be it in the country or overseas. A special panel now, like I said, with us. First and foremost, Pragya Singh, winner of the NDTV Deacon Scholarship. I wanted to ask you if it has sunk in, but I know the answer is going to be a loud no.
Yes, so, definitely. It's taking me 1 minute to 1 hour, and it's like, okay, it's sinking in 1 minute by the time, and I'm like, okay, it's finally here. I've finally got it. I've finally won it. As the calls are coming in, everyone's wishing me. I'm like, okay, it has happened. So yeah, I think by the time I reach there, probably it's going to...
Give yourself the weekend perhaps, and, then maybe we'll revisit this. Also with us, Dr. Vijendranath Jain, Vice Chancellor of BITS Pilani. Thanks very much, sir, for taking our time to be with us. Amanda Day, Councillor Education with the Australian High Commission. Thanks, Amanda. Also, Shankar Banvaryar, Co-Chair, Higher Education Committee, CII, and Ravneet Pava, Director, South Asia, Deakin University. Thanks all so much for taking our time to be with us. I want to just start by asking you, Colonel Singh, your daughter said quite categorically and vehemently yesterday that she was very keen to make sure that she was going to avail the best education that she possibly could. She said she's been very keen on it. She said she was going to go abroad to study, irrespective of whether she got the scholarship or not. What do you think helped this clarity that she was so clear in her head? What's the kind of role that you believe you have played in all of this? And your wife, of course.
What I feel is that the major part, what as parents we have to follow is that leave your child at some stage to be on her own, like whatever she wants to become, like she has to decide, and don't interfere in the child's oral development. If as parents, if we keep on actually coming in the child's development every now and then it really you become an IIT or you become anything. Let a child automatically, decide that what he has. She is 18 or 17 years old. She can decide her own career.
Independence is also something that came up when we talked to Pragya earlier yesterday. But Dr. Jain, we're still a country where the family, of course, plays a very big role in figuring out where the student ends up, what you study, which is one reason why perhaps that we're producing more engineers than anywhere else in the world. Big question being, then what happens? How many are really keen on it? How many sort of need that clarity before they decide what to do next? They're, of course, all very young. How would you sort of see where things stand?
I think it's important to recognize that there are certain disciplines where there are huge opportunities in respect of employment. At the same time, one does need to also factor in the fact that there are other disciplines which could be as interesting as engineering, medicine, architecture, or commerce. So I think from a student's viewpoint, they should not limit themselves to simply looking at these 4 or 5 disciplines. They should be exploring others. And that includes, of course, journalism, which is what this young lady wants to pursue.
Delighted to see that.
And I'm sure there are absolutely many more opportunities available, both in India as well as abroad.
Right.
Of course, in India, there are not too many universities or colleges that offer great quality of education or a great learning experience. So one may have to explore opportunities outside India as well.
Right.
Would want to see many more colleges and universities focus more on the quality of education that they provide to our young men and women, as opposed to exploring opportunities to expand their intake and student strength.
Right, and that's of course a big concern, Shankar, wouldn't you say, that education has become a big business now. It's the business of education. It's lucrative. There is a young, it's cliche to say we're such a young country, but yes, in 10 years, 76% of India roughly will be under the age of 35. Absolutely. And that's a big market as far as all those in the business of education are concerned. How seriously are we taking this threat?
I think the opportunities, as you said, is phenomenal, because if we are going to have the greatest force of young people in the world in this country, clearly it's giving us a great opportunity, and as a business or just as an opportunity. I think there are players who are taking it serious. There are fantastic, good quality institutions which are coming up to global standards. But I think what's missing in between is global exposure, correct understanding of the market and interest for the students and understanding what is needed. But we have followed a herd approach so far in saying this is what works, like yourself said, engineering. So I think now a more global understanding, a better understanding of what this country needs, what young people are wishing for, and better regulations or more free regulations will enable that.
Pragya, how did you decide that, this is something that you wanted to pursue so actively that you were going to go ahead irrespective of what the outcome of the scholarship was going to be, and that you were going to pursue journalism, which is now sort of more accepted than it was, a couple of years ago? But
ma'am, apart from the fact that it has always been my passion, honestly, I don't know how it's going to sound, but once I got posted to a city like Kota, where people are so obsessed with engineers and medical, I mean, it just hit me that, things need to start changing now. I think the stigmas related to certain professions that we still have in our country need to be removed. Like, it's okay, there are certain colleges offering you vocational courses, but the day these vocational courses become accepted as professions, I think that is the day the people of our countries will stop going abroad.
Point. That's actually a very important point, because we haven't managed to make skilling cool enough. It's not cool enough to have a vocation. There are all those people who come to us and say, I'd rather go to a sort of a dubious institution to get a certificate or get a degree, because I think we as a country love degrees and certificates also. Amanda, what do you believe has been Australia's experience, in all of this? Because now not only is it one of the countries that's offering top international, one of the world's best education, not just to its own students, but a huge platform for students abroad as well. What are the lessons that India can learn, you think?
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. I think it's a great question, because Australia has 7 of the top universities in the world, in the top 100 recently. We've also got a very good and strong skills development sector. So I think the point about skill development in Australia has been really strong. So, and I think as well, there's a great diversity of offerings. So we're not limiting people to just be engineers or doctors. People have a variety of pathways. And I think in today's world, I read an article the other day that the current generation will have 7 different career changes in their lifetime. So how are we preparing, just not in Australia, but in India and across the world, how are we preparing those young students for 7 career changes, which may not be related to each other?
Absolutely. 7 different career changes is
phenomenal.
Wow. I mean, it's really wow. Imagine. And it sort of really opens up the world to you, Ravneet. This one thing in common that we saw among all the students that we did meet yesterday was the fact that everyone talked about the need to have the best education. They were very clear that, this is why they wanted to be a part of this, and perhaps other opportunities as well, that we just want the best. And we're very clear about what they wanted. And again, we had people from forensics to journalism to liberal arts, a lot of what people wanted to study.
Absolutely. I think the mindsets of people, especially the young generation, is really opening up. They're very clear, I don't want to do this because, people have been doing this for a very long time. The world is moving into careers of the future. So I think that's where the children are right now in their headspace. My 17-year-old one is also sort of moving away from the cliched stuff, do a commerce degree or do, so there is a lot of opportunity for kids nowadays, I think, to think about what they want to do and then really go and achieve it. So the world is a platform, and, we are talking about students, everything is accessible. It's a question of how and, when to get there.
Prime Minister goes to Germany and talks about their system and how they're cracking it, half the week in the classroom, the other half sort of on the shop floor, and trying to figure out how things work there. Is that really an answer when we look, especially when we look at skills, what we're going to look at after we come out of this break? Stay with us.